Okay, I think we are rolling here, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to our Alumni Q&A. I'm Roger Woodard, the Director of the Online Masters in Data Science here at the University of Notre Dame. And I am fortunate enough tonight to have three of our alumni with us who are going to talk a little bit about their experience. Before we get started, just a few quick things. Tonight, we want to have a little bit of interaction between the audience and our panelists. We want you to ask your questions you might have. We have a set of questions that we're going to start off with, but then we do want you to ask your questions. If you notice in Zoom, there's a Q&A button. And if you would, go ahead and hit that Q&A button to submit your questions. So you can go ahead and type those in there. Our staff will see those and then pass those on to the panelist. So just quick introductions that we have with us tonight. My Associate Director, Samantha Adamczewski, who is going to help us out tonight, along with Courtney Mayfield, our admissions specialist. If you have questions tonight, do put them in the Q&A and they'll help queue those up for us. And then we also have three of our alums with us. And I'm going to ask each of them to introduce themselves. And before I do that, I'm going to just give you a quick overview. If you're on this call, you probably know a little bit about the program and have read a little bit of the details, but just quickly, the Online Masters in Data Science is designed for working professionals. It is a 21-month program that is intended to get you the technical skills you need to become a functioning data scientist. So we teach you a lot about machine learning and AI, but we also teach you a lot about how to communicate results and also a lot of the ethical side of data science. The program has the same rigor of any Notre Dame master's degree program. So you go through 30 credit hours and take the same kind of courses that you would in any on-campus program. It is a program that we built from scratch to be online. So everything that we do is intended to be in the online format, and we built it with a lot of industry input. We have lots of industry partners who have told us what they need in a data scientist and told us a lot about, what are the necessary skills. So as we designed our curriculum, we built those things in. And hopefully you will get a sense of how that has played out for some of our alums. So let's get started by just asking each of them to tell us a little bit about themselves. Nicole, why don't you start us off?
Sure. Thanks, Roger. Hi, my name is Nicole McAlee. I am a 2024 alum of the Online Masters in Data Science program from Notre Dame. I also have my bachelor's from Notre Dame in Information Systems, which I earned in 2016. And currently I work as a data scientist at Wells Fargo.
Megan, why don't you go next?
Hi, everyone. My name is Megan Hammond. I work in artificial intelligence product strategy at Google and am from Michigan.
And Michael, last but not least.
Yeah, hi, everyone. My name is Michael Labbe. I graduated from the data science program in 2024. I did my undergrad at Ole Miss in computer science. I actually trained through Naval ROTC there. I graduated commissioned in 2017, spent 7 years as a Naval Surface Warfare Officer in the Navy, and then came into this cohort, but I also currently work at Notre Dame as the Assistant Director for Military and Veterans Affairs at Notre Dame. So I've been working in this role now since 2023. And I now live in South Bend, Indiana with my wife, Katie, and son, Patrick, and we are also expecting a daughter in May. So
congratulations. I didn't know that. Let's see. One of the things that people often ask us when they're thinking about which graduate program to choose is why should they come to Notre Dame? So Michael, we'll go in reverse order here. So I'll start with you.
Yeah.
Why did you choose Notre Dame?
Well, I actually grew up your typical kind of run-of-the-mill, lifelong Notre Dame fan. It's kind of, grew up watching Rudy, kind of envisioning that moment when I would walk out the tunnel with my shoulder pads and gold helmet and all that. And obviously had a Catholic upbringing as well. So that was, it was almost like a no-brainer for me, I would say. But I think, long before grad school, I had my eyes set on Notre Dame, but I did also explore other master's programs. I was actually accepted into two schools, Notre Dame being one of them and UC Berkeley being another. And I ultimately chose Notre Dame for several reasons, one of which, I must admit, had a little to do with the bias I had already built up in being a fan of the school. But beyond that, Notre Dame's program, they offered a smaller, more intimate cohort size, which I found very important to me, since I was looking for something a little bit more kind of close knit and something that would allow me to grow closer with my classmates and kind of have a little bit more like intimate understanding of have kind of like that relationship built in with my cohort, but also with my faculty that were teaching the subjects. And so I think that was primary for me. And then I also saw that university had a commitment to being a force for good in the world, and just like kind of like the data ethics emphasis sort of kind of hit home with me. And I knew I wanted to do something that was impactful and learn about data science, but also learn about how that could affect and make an impact on the world for the good. And then not only that, but I heard from individuals who raved of Notre Dame's alumni network, which it's been proven to be true for me. It may not be like the biggest out there, but it is for me, it's in my experience, I feel like it is one of the strongest alumni networks. So what it lacks in size, I think it really more than makes up for in quality. So, but yeah, it's been a really fulfilling journey for me, and I feel like very good about being a domer now, and definitely feel like I made the right decision for myself. Obviously, I'm still here at Notre Dame now, so if that goes to show you, what I think about Notre Dame, then there you go.
Yeah, and for those of you that don't know, when he said he's a domer, people that graduate from the University of Notre Dame are called domers after our Golden Dome.
That's right.
Megan, what about you? Why did you choose Notre Dame?
I think there's probably three main things that it boiled down to for me. I think the first would be a sense of community. I think there's part of it of, this program has a lockstep cohort. So you are with the same group of peers for the full 21 months, which I think that really jumped out to me as something that was interesting. I wanted to develop these relationships. I wanted to, meet with folks from other industries. I didn't necessarily want to be in a program that was, all folks from big tech and kind of stay in that bubble. I wanted to hear from folks in healthcare and higher education. And so that was definitely appealing and building those long-term relationships with my peers and with faculty and staff. I think the other two that come to mind are when I was looking for programs, I really wanted something where I wouldn't have to sacrifice the academic rigor. It was very important to me to have a very well-established program that was rigorous and would be challenging to me. I really wanted to take this time to intentionally stretch myself, challenge myself, develop new skills. And so I think those two were very important. And then Michael touched upon the third that was a big influence for me as well, which was the Force for Good piece. I think there are a lot of other schools out there that they will have courses on ethics. It will be sort of aside. I think here Notre Dame really puts that front and center, which is something that I really appreciated, because I knew if I wanted to sort of make this pivot into AI and into data science, that was something I wanted to be at the core, not just as an afterthought or something that would be a nice to have. And so I felt like that was something that really differentiated Notre Dame from other schools for me.
Excellent. Yeah. Nicole, what about you?
Yeah, I would definitely echo, I think, pretty much everything that Megan and Michael said as well. Academic rigor, lockstep program. Just a couple of things to add. I think I was really delighted by the fact that the program is, extremely rigorous, but that it's designed for working people. I quite honestly did not want to give up, 2 years of full-time work to be able to do this. So, it's certainly a heavy lift at times and you work really hard, but to be able to complete the master's while working full-time was extremely valuable. I would also say, from a personal perspective, in my previous role, I actually worked at Notre Dame. I was the program manager for the Notre Dame IBM Technology Ethics Lab. So I had a really strong professional interest as well in sort of approaching data science as a practitioner and not just as someone kind of observing from the outside. So it was really cool to be able to sort of marry those two elements of my professional life. And then I think the last thing, very selfishly, I mentioned that my bachelor's is from Notre Dame, and just the chance to be a double domer was very, very attractive. But I think, if the program hadn't been, as rigorous or, as excellent as it was, I would have gone for the best program. And I think that this was like the best one for me. So yeah, it was really great.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. So you've all gone through the program. You've gotten your bona fides in terms of your technical skills and communication, and now gone on to careers. So next question, of course, is how did this program impact your life and your career? Who wants to start with that one? Does anyone want to volunteer?
Sure, I can start. Yeah, I think for me, I think the program serves me, sure, in helping collect, aggregate, clean, present data in an effective way. All that stuff's important. I think the biggest thing is how to communicate that data to a lay audience, a non-technical audience, in a way that they understand and help to drive those data-driven decisions. So I think the communication piece is very important, and something that I use in my day-to-day job all the time. The master's program, in particular, actually opened the door to allow me to live out sort of my dream work that I envisioned when I was in the military. I knew I wanted to do sports analytics. So it really actually helped me kind of live that out, because we had a couple projects that I did during my second to last semester in the program. I actually was chosen one out of the a pool of 30 of over 400 applicants for NFL Big Data Bowl mentorship program, which, during the length of that program, I got to work pretty closely with an NFL data scientist from the Washington Commanders. And our project was focused on generating a predictive machine learning model to reveal what block shedding plays led to optimal yardage outcomes for linebackers. And specifically, we kind of used that to gauge which linebackers were better at block shedding than others. We ended up assessing that Zaire Franklin was at the top of the list from the Indianapolis Colts. So a couple months later, actually, we would find out after our project was turned in, we learned that Zaire received a significant re-signing bonus, and now he's the 8th highest paid linebacker in the league. So, how they say correlation doesn't equal causation, but I mean, maybe there's some causation there. Who knows? Who's to say, really? But also during our last semester, I teamed up with 4 other members of our cohort. A couple of them actually who had helped me out with the Big Data Bowl project as well. So shout out to 4 members of my cohort: David Smiley, Gabe Toro, Will Sovian, and Braden Kay. Together, we did our capstone with Notre Dame athletics, and we got to work with men's and women's lacrosse and men's and women's soccer biometric data collected from catapult vests that the athletes wore. And our job was to predict within a reasonable amount of RMSE the amount of meters that they would travel indoors without the use of GPS. So our goal was to hit 60 RMSE. We ended up getting really close. We got to 80. But I think it was within the tolerance that ND Athletics was looking for. And so I think we can neither confirm nor deny that we've contributed to saving Notre Dame athletics a ton of money through that project. So that's very kind of like an awesome thing to think about, and just something that I never would have been able to experience if it weren't for this program. And likewise, I think the NFL Big Data Bowl, that door was really opened through that brand name of Notre Dame, the ability to do that as well. So I owe both of those experiences, I think, to this program. And then we also, kind of following up from the capstone, we actually did put in for a paper for the National Journal of Sports Physiology and Performance. We actually just found out the exciting news that our article got selected for publication. And so we should be printing here in the next couple months. But today, in addition to working for the university, I also do some part-time data science work in the sports analytics realm alongside one of my prior project members, Will Sovian. So, today I guess I'm thrilled that I have the opportunity to continue using some of that sports analytics experience I cultivated in this program in my career today.
Congratulations on that publication. I didn't know that it was official yet. So congratulations.
Thank
That's
you.
Great. Nicole or Megan, what about you guys? How has this changed your life?
I'm happy to go next. I mean, I
Yeah.
would say, the biggest thing for me is I transitioned into a professional data science role. I felt, first of all, extremely prepared given the rigor of the program that I mentioned before. But also, I mean, I think the job market for data science is very, very competitive. I think people can learn a lot of data science or elements of data science on their own or on, Data Camp or Khan Academy. I don't think that is the same thing as this program. I think the way that, we were trained as data scientists in the Notre Dame program is extremely valuable in a way that you couldn't get from taking a million online classes in a row. So I think, yeah, transitioning to, a role at a huge company as a data scientist and feeling very prepared and, very able to keep up with my colleagues who have a whole variety of different backgrounds was really valuable. And I would say a lot of that is especially sort of like coming from the program being very rooted in statistics. That's those tools that I learned in the program, especially like R, but also, confidence intervals and hypothesis testing and linear modeling are things that I use every single day on the job. So, I think the academic rigor, as I mentioned before, is like a huge thing, but also the job readiness. The other thing, definitely like more personal that I would say is that I made great friends doing this program. I think it's easy to look at a 21-month online program and maybe be like, oh, I'll, see those people once or twice a week and maybe once or twice in person in a graduation, but I won't really know them. And like that could not be further from the truth. Have really met a lot of wonderful people that I stay in touch with professionally and personally. And I think we like really leaned on each other during, the most exciting and challenging parts of the program. The team, Roger and Courtney and Sam and everyone do a great job of making sure that, everyone really, really knows each other. And you do spend a lot of time together, even if it's on Zoom for your classes. So I would just say, as I experienced as an undergrad as well, Notre Dame, there's something about it that just like really fosters personal connection. So that was the other like really big positive thing I think that came out of it.
Very good. And Megan, what about you?
So for me, I actually transitioned to an entirely new role or pivoted sort of career path midway through this program, which I don't think I would have been able to do had I been just taking these kind of ad hoc, YouTube videos, data camp series. All those are great resources. But for me, my background was in consulting. So I worked in advertising consulting. And so I was selling AI-driven and ML-driven solutions, but I really wanted to use this time in the program to understand the technology behind it, the statistics behind it. And so ultimately I ended up taking a new role where I essentially am the person that makes business, data science, and engineering sort of play nice in the sandbox as we're going through product development. And so for me, I feel very grateful that this program allowed me to leverage my existing skills and then build a complementary skill set. I think this program did a really great job of fostering what each of us brings to the table with our own backgrounds and giving us the right foundation to sort of build off of that. I was really able to use my previous experience and figure out, well, how does this translate? How can I leverage what I already know? Where does this fit? Where do I have areas to grow and develop and sort of build up that analytical toolkit with different tools at my disposal? So I think ultimately just the opportunity to transition to that was huge. But on a more personal side, I think the other thing that this program gave me was a lot more confidence in my ability to solve very ambiguous problems. That is most of my job today. Not that I couldn't do it, but I think that going through this program, working on so many different opportunities over the course of the program with different peers, with different folks in the capstone, I think it builds a really great ability to solve tough problems. And that's something that I really value and carry with me today and credit the program for.
Very good. Yeah. So for our audience, again, if you have questions, feel free to click that Q&A button and put those in, and we'll get to those in just a moment to give them to our panel. But before we do that, we still have a couple more questions. We'll ask. All right. So you mentioned being working professionals while you were in the program, and there's lots of pieces to that. So Michael, you've got kids, and you guys are all balancing full-time jobs and all those kinds of things. How did you do that while you were in the program?
Yeah, I think first things first is I think you should try to work ahead as much as possible because you just never know what sort of like life circumstances will pop up,
Mhm.
and when they will pop up. So you can't really control that. What you can control though is like when you do the work. So when the work is available, when it comes out, when it's I think sometimes it's released on Sunday, sometimes it's released on Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken. But that's when you want to start that work and start working ahead. Like think about it like how I always thought about it was I would do next week's work this week, and then next week I would do the following week's work. And then if anything came up, then I would always have like at least 7 days built in to be able to catch up on something like if I needed to put something off in data science. So I think I was actually on active duty for 50% of the time of the program. So I think for the most difficult time for me was kind of like the initial stages when I was first starting out, since I was very much still, busy with my service commitment. During this time, although I had gone on my last deployment with the Navy that I would ever go on again, or that I would ever go on in my life, I still had a few small underways during the program that were about a week to 2 weeks long at a time. And, with this program being pretty flexible and, enough, it was actually flexible enough to support that. And, the professors and just, everyone who touched the program were very understanding anytime that situation arose. And that they gave me the ability to work ahead, releasing the material a week sooner if I needed it, so that I wouldn't fall behind during my time out at sea. So for those of you that are service members and trying to think about how this would fit into your life, don't give up hope unless you're like going on deployment. Like there's a way to make it work, and just don't get discouraged with that. And so, and then Roger mentioned I have kids, so my wife and I actually welcomed our birth of our first child during this time during the program, and our son received Notre Dame swag from Sam, who's the associate director for the program. She's here. Soon after he was born, which was just an awesome gesture. So, it's that kind of personal touch that you get, I think, from this Notre Dame data science program. So, but yeah, in addition to active duty, transitioning, becoming a father, I was also in the midst of finding a new job as I was separating halfway through the program. So you can imagine I was pretty busy already, but then you throw in trying to find a new job into that. And so that's always something hard to balance as well. And so actually almost for fun, I remember signing up for Indie Job Alerts after my second immersion, or I think it was either first or second immersion. I can't remember. I ended up signing for Indie Job Alerts and not thinking that I would find anything which I could apply for. I saw this job titled Assistant Director for Military and Veterans Affairs. And, I had to do a double take because I couldn't believe it at first. I saw it. I was like, this job was literally written for me, like word for word. I was like, yep, check, check, check. So luckily the timing worked out perfectly. Very much a God move. I applied, got the job here today. But yeah, I think balancing all of those things, you need a little bit of luck, but I mentioned it was challenging at times, but I think for me, it was helpful knowing that I felt like every time I asked for help, or every time every time I asked for help or needed to work ahead, I was always met with grace and understanding from people on this program, which is not something you always see, I think, in a top tier school like Notre Dame. So yeah, that would be my answer.
Yeah. Megan, what about you?
I think the two things come to mind. I think the one is, I think to the phrase, like, it takes a village, right? Like, I think it's naive to think that you're just sort of going to work full time and go through this rigorous program and have no support. Everyone's support system probably looks different. Maybe it's parents, kids, loved ones, whatever the case is. I think relying on folks just to sort of help you either recharge, to give you that energy, to help you decompress. It's going to look different for each person, but I think that's definitely a vital part. And then the other thing I think is finding a system that works for you. Michael mentioned, doing work when it's released so that you don't get behind. Definitely an advocate for that. I think for me, something that worked really well was I wanted to do all of my work during the weekdays so that I could really enjoy my Saturdays and Sundays and feel like I really got to like disconnect from everything from work and from the program on the weekends. That may not work for everyone. I think everyone has their own system that works depending on their schedule. But I think if you're able to look at what do I value in terms of my time, how do I want to best allocate it and come up with a fairly regimented process, life will happen, right? It's not always going to stick, but I think if you have a process, it makes going through the program a little bit easier, and then you can make adjustments as life comes around.
And Nicole?
Yeah, I would again like echo what both Megan and Michael said. I also found that working on assignments as soon as they were released was a way that I could, as long as I was on top of my work, take a Saturday off or take a Wednesday night off, and be able to recoup, watch a movie, do something fun, meet up with friends. So I found that was a system that worked for me, and it's much, much easier to kind of keep the momentum going when you're not like in the hole. I found a lot of my first semester I was like in the hole and I was working up against deadline, and that was just life at the time. But once I was able to like really get ahead of the work, it went a lot more smoothly. And the other thing that worked for me personally was just putting all of my school assignments on my work calendar. And just knowing like, okay, I'm done work at 5, but when I go home, I have to finish this, assignment, or I have to submit this by midnight. And that was easy because I was working at Notre Dame, so my school calendar was my work calendar. But it just having everything in one place, or if you're a planner person, like I really recommend doing that just to keep track, because there are lots of practice problems, lots of assignments, lots of projects, and things can just slip if you're not checking Canvas every day. And then I would also say the other thing was I ended up just traveling a lot while I was going through this program, and I just would sit in an airport lounge and like do homework or take notes or watch lectures. I tried to squeeze like really any downtime in a place like being on a plane or, waiting somewhere to do a little bit of work. And I felt that like really piled up too and let me get through work a little bit more quickly. So that was just what worked for me.
Excellent. Yeah. And I will stress that one of the things that we really try to do is recognize that, people that have lives, have got stuff going on, and sometimes things are unexpected. Michael mentioned deployment. We have someone who was he's working in the program, but he's also on an aircraft carrier in the middle of the ocean. And, so things are complicated for him. So some weeks, his assignments, he can't get them in on time because they don't have internet or something like that. And we work with them in the same way we work with people, if your child gets sick, or if, you have an unexpected work assignment or something like that. We know that's going to happen, and we work with people to make sure that it doesn't negatively impact your program experience. Let's see, some other questions. So advice for people considering the program. What kind of things, and Nicole, do you want to start us off? Do you have advice you would give?
Yeah, I think, be prepared for it to be a big commitment, but that it's really, really worthwhile. The other thing I would say that helped me a lot was I actually took a linear algebra course this semester before I started the program as kind of a prerequisite for starting. A, because I'd never taken it before, and B, Roger, you recommended it. But I felt that even just taking a course, especially a math course, really helped me get back into having good study habits. I don't think that you necessarily would need to take something for credit, but I felt that getting back into the swing of having, weekly homework and deadlines and exams, and how do I prepare for an exam and how do I sit for an exam? That really helped me like hit the ground running when I got back into the classroom kind of for real in August. So, that was helpful for me. I don't know that like that necessarily benefits everyone, but yeah, and the other thing, maybe this isn't advice, but just an observation, is it might feel like it's really long at the beginning, and it goes like that. It is so fast. You'll be so busy, the time will fly. So just like appreciate it while it's happening, because you might not do more graduate school in the future, and it's an amazing opportunity to just like learn and absorb and be a sponge and ask questions and work with really smart people. So I think that would be my advice.
Okay. Yeah. Megan, what about you?
I think I would say be intentional about what you want to get out of this program. And so I think for me, I knew I wanted to pivot in my career, but I didn't know exactly what that role after would look like. And so throughout each course, I would find myself being drawn to certain themes or topics and be like, oh, I find this very interesting. Oh, I want to learn more about this. And that really helped me make a better decision of what types of roles I wanted to apply to and what interested me more than other topics. I think in terms of thinking about the program and preparing, I also did take linear algebra. I found that to be helpful. I think the other one is I did not have a very strong programming background. I had some programming experience, but I would not have called myself a good programmer prior to this. So I think you definitely do not have to be a programming whiz. I think that is a myth, so I will bust that. But I do think in preparing for this or considering the program, it's helpful to have some familiarity in a programming language or understand, this is how databases work. I think you maybe it's SQL, maybe it's Python, maybe it's R. Everyone has, a different language they may be comfortable in, but I think having some exposure coming into the program, even if you are just watching YouTube videos, you're trying different exercises on like a data camp, Khan Academy, I do think that is very helpful in building that sense of familiarity if you are someone like myself that came in from more of a business background than a programming side.
And Michael.
Yeah, I think so. First part is, I think when you're considering like initially whether this program is for you or not, I think if you're struggling to decide between Notre Dame or another school, whatever it is, I think you need to take some time to yourself and just ask yourself, beyond getting a degree in data science, which is obviously the goal, I think you have to ask yourself what you value and sort of what you want to get out of the program at the end of the day. So for me, I mentioned I found it incredibly important to have kind of a smaller cohort. More intimate cohort size was important to develop those relationships, but I also found the data ethics piece very important to me. I mentioned my Catholic upbringing. So I think you just have to ask yourself what's important to you. I think the second part that I would want you to think about is what will you get out of it beyond the degree? Think about the connections, the experiences, the strong alumni network that I mentioned earlier, that network you tap yourself into. And sure, consider name brand, all that stuff is important. But I'll say this about Notre Dame. This is a school that I think prides itself on not just educating students. It's a school that welcomes you as a member of a family, and I think you'll feel that from day one. My experience, the alumni network will bend over backwards for you. That there's never anyone that has refused a meeting with me if I ask for help. So obviously I love it here since I never actually left. But regardless of my bias, I have never met a single individual from my cohort or the cohort ahead of mine or was before me, because we've actually interacted with the other cohort during our immersion weekends, whoever regretted doing the program. But another thing is that you may experience, when you in your first semester, especially, at least for me, you may experience a little bit of imposter syndrome. Just for me, at least, it was for statistics. Getting through statistics was the hardest part, and then after that, it was like, okay, I got this. Like I got a head of steam going. So I think just take it day by day, and don't, like I think Megan or Nicole may have said, it takes a village. Definitely takes a village. So just use your connections, use your classmates, and lean on them when you have to. But you guys will get through this together. I think that's the most important thing I can tell you, is that you will get through this. You just have to have faith. And that's it.
Excellent. All right. At this point, we'll start taking some of the questions from the Q&A. Again, for our audience members, if you have a question, hit the Q&A button there in Zoom. It should be on the toolbar in Zoom, and it should allow you to type in that question, and then we will start taking some of those. So let's go ahead and get into some of those. Sam, I don't know if you have them queued up and want to read them off.
Sure. And I will just say before I get into the Q&As to speak to the alumni, when I reached out to Megan, Nicole, and Michael, they all responded within like 2 hours of me reaching out. So they also are the lovely alumni that they're referencing.
Yep.
The first question we have this evening is, along the lines of what Megan mentioned regarding pivoting her career, could you please share any insights on the undergraduate academic background / degrees and professional experiences that your fellow cohort members had, and if how that benefited your experience in the program?
Yeah, and I don't know if any of you want to take that and can talk about what maybe some of your classmates and you guys, your backgrounds and how that impacted you guys?
Yeah, I can take that. I don't know if I would know the exact breakdown, but I would say roughly there was probably close to a quarter of us whose background was somewhere in business. I'd say there was also probably another maybe quarter to a third whose business was or whose background was somewhere in software engineering or something in that realm. And then I would say the remainder of people, it was a very widespread of backgrounds from there. Michael mentioned military experience, higher education. We had some folks from healthcare. So I think pretty widespread that it was. I didn't ever feel like I was like, oh my gosh, I'm the only person that like does not know this in this room, which I think was really helpful. To add on that, I actually think one of the things that helped me most in the program was I found people who had a fairly similar background as me. And so it was easy to sort of have friends and have that baseline. And then I also had another group of people that I worked with really regularly on projects and whatnot that had a very different background that was actually very complementary. And so I loved having the ability to have sort of the best of both worlds where I felt like I could, digest some of this and see like, does this make sense to this group? And then I had another group of folks that I was close with where I was like, this person has a completely different background. I can learn a ton from them. They can learn from me. Very symbiotic. But I would say pretty diverse backgrounds in terms of what people studied in undergrad.
And I'll just mention from the admissions committee that I sit on the admissions committee, so I see all the applications that come in. And the committee does try to actually get a diverse cohort. We don't want just, people that came out of a computer science undergrad. We don't want just people that, have math degrees. We want some of those, but we also want some individuals that come from, a pure business background or any other kind of background. And we've had people that, have history degrees. The diversity of that experience and different ways of looking at things can really help out because, sometimes you learn best by explaining things to other people, and you might know something that someone else doesn't, and then you're explaining that, and it really helps it sink in with you. Let's see. Sam, did you have other questions here that we can take a look at?
Yes. With it being an online program, what is the dynamic like with your cohort and how do you network and build relationships?
Yeah. Anybody want to jump in on that?
I'm happy to start. I think I mentioned this a little bit in one of my earlier responses, but I think the cohort is like just one of the best things that came out of it. And it was something that I like truthfully didn't exactly expect from an online program. I think that really started at Immersion. So if you can swing it, I absolutely encourage you to go to as many immersions as you can. Especially the orientation, that's where you sort of like hit the ground running and meet people. You're in a room together for, 2.5, 3 days. And you're like doing silly stuff together, but you're also setting up your like R instance and stuff. And that's a great way to just meet people, and they're not just like a little person in your screen. They're like someone that you sat and had dinner with or whatever. But I think the other part of that, and Roger and Sam, like stop me if things have changed, but we're in 2 sections. East section meets earlier, West section meets later. And every Monday and Thursday, you're seeing the same people in class for an hour and a half. And class is, a little bit of lecture, but generally like hands-on experience where you're out in a breakout room, you're working on solving a problem together, you're coding collaboratively. It is not like a passive experience where you're just kind of like sitting there and listening to the lectures. Like part of the program is that you do that on your own time, and then you come to class prepared to like start applying the material. And so I felt that like you get to talk to everyone in your section, and then you have a group project and you're working with a handful of people in your section, and you're organizing meetings in your spare time where you're like talking through questions and problems together. So even though you're not like physically in the same place except for a couple of times a year, you're like constantly talking to and working with those people. And I mean, I think, and Michael and Megan, you can chime in on this too, but like by the end of Immersion, you've shared your number with like everyone. And by the end of the first homework assignment, you're texting people and being like, I'm getting stuck with this error. Can you help me? Like, so I think that, all of that to say, like, I really think that, Roger and Sam and Courtney and the entire team do a great job of like facilitating those relationships, even though a lot of it happens virtually.
Yeah. Anybody else want to chime in on
Yeah,
that?
I think networking is huge, huge piece of this. Like what I mentioned, I was looking for jobs like halfway through this program, and it actually just so happened that there was someone in the cohort with their own, they were actually director of their office, but they also had a side business that they were running, and he had 6 kids on the side as well, just for the heck of it. So anytime I felt busy, I always looked to him because I was like, all right, this guy, if he can do it, I can do it. But yeah, he actually offered to get me a couple of job interviews, and I kind of like used those connections and went to the job and found out it wasn't for me. But it's definitely those connections that can help you get jobs. These people have, I think we mentioned, Nicole mentioned these people come from different backgrounds, or maybe it was Megan, business, finance, healthcare, computer science, software engineering, all those backgrounds need data scientists. So I think with that, yes, you have these in-person immersions, but these in-person immersions are just kind of like the launching off point to the connections later on down the road, that if you are looking to pivot careers or go from data science to something else, like these are the people that you lean on. This is your network that you have built in, these lifelong friends that will be there, that you can call out for help, and they will, maybe some of them will help you, some of them won't, but that's life. But I think the thing is, like, definitely fostering those connections is huge. An online platform, we mentioned some breakout rooms. Every single session just about every single session has a breakout room. So you're interacting with different people every single Zoom session, a class session that you have. And, it's always, sometimes it's the same face, sometimes it's a new face. You get to know people. Sometimes you grow closer to a specific group of people, and other people, you still have, you're still friends, but it's just, you find your clique, just like anything else. But I think, yeah, it was definitely way more interactive than I bargained for. I think initially, I was thinking for something more less interactive, but it was very interactive, and I think I grew through that and building those relationships, and so definitely huge. Yeah.
Megan, did you want to add to that, or was there more?
I think the only thing I would add is that beyond this, group projects are also a great way to kind of foster those connections. That's not just, a couple of us mentioned this capstone project at the end of your last semester, and that's sort of the big group project, but you have group projects sprinkled throughout in many of these courses. And I find that to be like a very organic way of, okay, maybe we were in this breakout room together, now we're working on this project. And that's some of the ways that you end up spending more time with these people, realizing, oh, I have a lot in common. You're staying there, like Nicole and Michael were both mentioning, oh, I'm stuck on this. I don't know why my code don't run. Can someone take a look at this and just kind of gut check me? People really are very willing to help you. And I think that sense of community really is great. And I think it's cool to see how that while people come and go throughout and graduate through this program, that sort of remains very stable of folks are very willing to help you. There is a great sense of community there. And I think it really, you build all of these connections very organically, I think is the best way to put it.
And just to, we kind of threw some terms around there, and I'll just kind of highlight. We talked about immersion weekends, and this is something that the audience may not be aware of. The program is fully online. So you do everything from wherever you are in the world, really. But we do come together physically in the same place 4 times throughout the 21 months of the program. So always in August, at the beginning of the program, we come together here at the University of Notre Dame so that you can get, as Nicole mentioned, get to know each other, do some silly things, but also do some things that kind of prepare you for that first semester and get you oriented. And then in January, again in August, and then January again, we get together. We use that as an opportunity to bring in experts from industry and corporate partners who talk about how they really use data science and some of the things that they do, as well as exploring topics that we wouldn't have time in the regular classes. So things that we can dig in a little more deeply. So in the most recent immersion, we dug a lot into generative AI and using that in a coding environment and things like that. So lots of additional topics that we can get into in those weekends. They're optional other than that very first one, but they are, again, a chance for you to really build that network and bond. We also mentioned the capstone. The capstone is that during the last semester, that is a course, but it is a opportunity for you to work with a corporate partner who has data and a question, and you are put together in groups of 5 or 6 students to work on that. As Michael mentioned, he worked with Notre Dame Athletics. Megan, did you work with the hospital? Was that?
Yeah, I was the Kansas City Children's Group.
Yeah, and Nicole, I don't remember which team you worked with.
I'm not sure if I can say the name. I'll say I worked for an extended warranty company.
Okay, yeah. Again, sometimes they're big Fortune 500 companies, and sometimes they're smaller nonprofits and local governments, things like that. But it gives you a chance to really see how it really works, because professors will give you assignments during class that a lot of times we know the answer. But the great thing with the capstone is we don't know the answer going in, and it's really a chance for you to find that. But let's see, Sam, did we have other questions, or are we?
Yeah, I'm going to circle back really quickly to the immersion weekends to provide just a little bit more detail, because that was actually the next question. It was from our Instagram account asking how many times you come to campus. But I will note that the January immersions are not in South Bend, Indiana. And if you've ever been to South Bend, Indiana in January, you will understand why they're not here, because it's so very cold. So we've gone places like Palo Alto, Dallas, Raleigh. We try to go places that don't snow, although it did snow in Dallas this year while we were there. So I feel like I can't market it quite like that anymore, but we really try. And then also an additional opportunity to be on campus is graduation. So all of our students have the opportunity to graduate with the full graduate school. Typically it's in the stadium. You get to walk across the stage with everybody else. It's not separated from online and in-person programs. You're all together. You'll get your cap and gown and go through that whole experience, and then we kind of celebrate as a program. And typically almost everybody does attend that, and that is optional as well. I think this year one person isn't able to make it, but I think that says a lot about the program too, and that people want to come back and celebrate that with everyone and bring their family to campus. And definitely not in January, but in May. So I did want to add that on to that question. The next question that came from social media was tips on getting involved in the ND community. So I'm not sure exactly in what they meant, but maybe after graduation, are there ways that you stay involved with the Notre Dame community? Or if you want to go and talk about career services, I don't think that's been mentioned yet, but that also involves a lot of the ND community. So whatever you would like to comment on.
Yeah, does anybody have thoughts on getting involved with like the alumni clubs or anything like that?
I can start. I would say definitely in your home city or wherever you find yourself living during and after. You don't need to wait until you're an alumnus to participate in your alumni organization. Sign up, for your local alumni club emails. Go to events. I currently live in Philadelphia, which is where I'm from, and we have a very active alumni association here. They, organize volunteer events and game watches and things like that. And that's a great way to meet people in the larger Notre Dame community of all ages. And I would also just comment that career services was really helpful. I, had been open to looking for a job in data science, throughout the program. And I know that Eric has moved on to a new role, but there is like a person in career services who's specifically assigned to work with data science students. Definitely take advantage of that. Get a resume review, talk about interview questions. If you're like, I want to pivot to a job in data science, but I don't even know what they are, that person is going to be extremely helpful in helping you sort of like think through things and just be a sounding board. And they can be as involved or as uninvolved as you want. And those appointments are, virtual or in person if you happen to be in South Bend. I know Eric always set up time during immersions to like meet with people one-on-one. So I would say like definitely take advantage of those resources, and you don't have to wait until you're like graduating to look for a job or talk to career services, and you don't need to wait until you've graduated to get involved in your alumni association.
Yeah, and I will mention that our graduate career services consultant is a resource that's available to anyone that's gone through the program or it's in the program, but that's a service that's ongoing. So it doesn't stop when you graduate. So we have alumni who've been out for 5 years who are ready to make a transition to a different job, and they come back and talk with our graduate consultants. So that is something that, again, is a benefit that is really for life, and it really does give you that opportunity. Did anybody else have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say Eric Oswald was great when he was our graduate career counselor, and he like I think Nicole just mentioned, like he met with each one of us like individually, but he also like chopped my resume like a lot. It needed a lot of work, and I think I credit him to helping me get the job I have now, and also I think he's actually moved on to a new role now, I believe. But anyways, but the career counseling resource, that's an absolutely amazing thing to get him to ask for help in. And I will also say that my LinkedIn profile also needed work, and so they worked with that as well. So I owe a lot of credit to the Career Counseling Center.
Our new counselor is Maggie, and she's done also helped people mark up their resumes and their LinkedIn's and so forth. Yeah.
One of the things that she's working, oh no, you're fine. Eric he got promoted. So for all of you that knew Eric, he did get promoted. He's still in the same office, but Maggie is our new graduate career consultant, and she has made a lot of time and resources for current students, and we're working on building alumni resources as well. One of the big things she's tackling right now with both current students and alums is AI going through people's resumes and how to kind of best position yourself in that new world and what it looks like and everything. So she's been doing like tips every month for students and working with them to really get their resumes in good shape for the future.
I think we're almost out of time, Sam. We don't have other questions spooled up at the moment, do we? Okay.
That was it. That was the last one.
Okay. I do want to round out by just mentioning, I know that if you're in our audience, you're probably thinking, okay, I don't have any questions at the moment, but as soon as we get off the call, you'll probably think, oh, I should have asked this. Feel free to reach out to us. You can reach us by text, by email, on the social media platforms. Come to our website, but reach out to us. We're more than happy to connect with you in whatever way works best for you. I do also want to, we haven't heard a lot from her tonight, but Courtney Mayfield's on the call here with us. She is here to help you with your application and is able to answer questions about how to apply and any of the documents you need, any of that kind of stuff. So always feel free to reach out to her or any of our team, because we do want to make sure that we help you out through this process. We know it can be daunting to figure out, all right, how do I go ahead and fill out this application and all those kind of things. I want to thank our panel. It is always a pleasure to work with you guys, and it is great seeing you again. It seems like just yesterday you were in my classes, so it's been too long, actually. Again, if you do have questions, feel free to reach out to us. Thank you again to our panel. Thank you, Sam and Courtney. And if you have questions, please reach out.